Today on Parts Hold, we are going to talk about a buzzword in the industry, something's really important for parts managers to get a grasp on. We're going to talk about soft skills. I'm Christian Lafferty, this is Cliff Honeycutt, and welcome to Parts Hold.
Here to fill the order.
So it's getting to be that time of year. It's time for my annual RV trip.
Oh, yes, it is.
Did I tell you where I'm going?
No, I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay.
Reveal.
So this year, we are headed to the grandest of canyons.
Wow, doing the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, because everyone wants to take an RV to a big hole.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of fun because I do a thing with, I don't know what that means. Maybe it's the coach in me, but I make my son like kind of map out the course and figure out where we're going to stop, what campgrounds we're going to stop. Like I swear I got this from my grandmother who was a teacher. But she's like, we're going to go on a vacation. We're going to have a fun trip, but you're going to do work. And I remember like as a 10-year-old, I was in the front seat navigating and telling my grandfather where to turn the RV because this is a family tradition.
Okay.
That's happened. So they had an old Winnebago and everything.
Yeah.
And but my job was I was the navigator, and so I've passed this down to my son, and he has come up with a couple of really weird places for us to stop in Arizona. So I'm kind of pumped to see what happens. We're gonna do a little bit of Route 66 work. Definitely going to see the big hole in the ground, but yeah,
exciting.
So it's cool, but I would like to think, in 20 years that he'll look back and he'll remember because we've done Yosemite, we did, Sequoia, and now we're doing the Grand Canyon. So we're kind of getting I would say probably the best RV trips for the West, like the Southwest.
Are you having him map it out in like a real map?
Yeah. Rand McNally, Road Atlas kind of stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
I love it. Because if you think about it, the chances of him ever looking at a map are probably really, really slim.
If we didn't do these RV trips, I don't know that he would be aware that maps exist on paper.
No, I don't think, like, can you even you used to be able to walk in a gas station and get a map.
Yep, you still can.
Can you? Okay.
Maps, gas stations, they also have them at rest areas too.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. So does he map out the whole course from the time you?
Yeah, like where we're gonna start day one, where do we stop, how many miles are we gonna get accomplished in the day, and everything like that.
I love it.
So yeah, it's he's gotten pretty good at it. I mean, he got us all the way to Montana.
That's super impressive.
So I'm pretty excited about today's topic only because I feel like it's a buzzword in the industry right now, and I'm hearing it way more. So one of my roles with Chris Collins is that I do strategy sessions with potential incoming clients, and part of what I do on that is needs analysis, where I'm looking in and listening to the clients about what is it that they're looking for and everything like that. And they've really become keenly aware of the last couple of years, and I would say it's a buzz term in the industry is soft skills. And honestly, the first time that I heard it, I'm like, what is this? It felt really made up.
Yep.
And then I started to kind of understand a little bit better, like what people are looking for. And I think that that's a buzzword, but it's always been something else.
Yes.
At the end of the day, and you've got an amazing list that we're going to review today. So I think that this soft skill conversation for parts departments, it's really easy to say that stuff doesn't apply to me.
I'd agree with that.
And at the end of the day, the more you say that, the less clients you're going to keep. Because I think that there's a lot to, at the end of the day, people, when it comes to parts, they've got tons of options, right? They've got other dealerships, they've got the aftermarket, they've got the internet, they've got a ton of options, and you are no longer required, part of that equation.
Yeah. When I built this and started kind of going through it, I thought of it from a couple of different avenues. I thought of it from a managerial standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I thought of it from a counterperson standpoint. I thought of it from a service standpoint versus parts and what kind of partner I would want, and the other way around. And the last area that I kind of looked at it too was from an owner standpoint, looking at what I would want and what I would be looking for in a future employee. So I think you could even throw a little bit in that of these are the skills that you need to be successful in a lot of different ways.
Okay, great. Well, without further ado, let's get started. Talk to us about your soft skill list.
Okay, so my list, I started out with teamwork.
Okay, and then so this list is things that you're saying how to improve or soft skills you need to know. Like, unpack for me what the list is.
So I think it's both. I think it's things that you need to be able to possess, and then things that you need to continue to work on in your career. The other side of that is I also think it's things that I want to look for when I'm hiring staff. And for example, starting out with teamwork, and one of the things that I found important is I felt like when I hired someone that was playing team sports in school, especially a younger kid that's just coming out of school, I felt like an individual that was involved in team sports always told me that they understood the differences and how to deal with different people.
Yeah. So that's a question you're asking on an interview. What kind of activities were you involved in schooling?
Yeah, for sure, because I want to get to know them, number one, as a person, and then the other side is I am looking for, were they involved in team sports? I think if you did a poll, and I don't know, maybe you agree or maybe you don't agree, but if you were to poll a lot of people out there, there's a lot of times that folks that are involved in team sports become better team members because they're used to that environment. They
know what a good example of that is?
Doesn't carry their weight all the time.
The military. People that were in the military understand.
Another great one.
Yep, they understand the team atmosphere and that there's a role to be played. It's funny that the military is great at developing leaders and role players both, because not everybody that comes out of the military is a leader.
Yes,
right?
That's right.
So there's some people that just understand that they've got a role to play in order to make the bigger thing happen. I love all that.
Well, I think at the same time, too, they understand the hierarchy in the business. Like, they're
chain of command
to override the manager, and they're not trying to step on anyone's toes. They understand that the chain of command.
Well, as long as they know that the leader has their best interest at heart.
Yeah.
So so you get that gift, but you have to keep it.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. And then number 2 is problem solving. I'm looking for someone who can solve an issue. For example, in the parts department right now, we've talked about it in the past. There's a big thing with back orders right now. It's a real issue. But how do I figure out, how do I solve the issue? How do I figure out how to get the part and take care of the customer and make some money off of it and get it on the road?
Yeah. My belief with the back order thing, I know it's not perfect science, but I do believe that there's a little bit of there's a cadence to, like, I think what happens is there's just people that are better at getting themselves to the top of the list when it comes to the back order.
On receiving it from the manufacturer? Yeah. I would agree with that.
So I think that there's something to the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but you have to do it in a really respectful manner.
Yeah.
I think you constantly have to be following up and never accepting, like, not having an ETA or having an ETA that's way too far out, that there's always something that can be done to get.
I always felt like faster. a terrible word coming from the parts counter was no.
Yeah, it just means we haven't figured out the road yet.
Yeah.
And then just being resourceful with sourcing, I think all that kind of comes into it. But how would you interview for problem solving?
Well, hang on before you get to that.
Oh, I wanted to skip everything.
But when you were talking a minute ago about having different sources, that problem solving is the same thing. Like, I can find different sources. There's multiple things available to me too. The aftermarket, the internet, the salvage business. Like, there's so many different things that are available from the problem solving aspect. How would I interview for the problem solving?
Yeah. How would you figure out if somebody's good at problem solving?
I'm going to ask them, I'm going to put them in a scenario and ask them what they would do. So it might be, once I have my whole dialogue in there, hey, what would you do in this scenario? Say you have a flat tire and you can't make it to work on time. Like, what are you going to do? You know, even as simple as that. Like I'm looking for them to be able to solve the issue. I'm just really looking at how they think.
Oh, so I go a different direction, but I understand why you would do that because you go hypothetical. I am all about like past performance as an indicator of future performance. So I want them to tell me about a time where they had to use problem solving to get out of a situation where there was an issue and the solution wasn't clear.
So I would throw that. There's another one item on my list that I would probably put in that scenario, but I can definitely strong argument for using both. But I like that method too. Another one I love is asking what makes them laugh. But there's an area there too. But
You got to be careful with the answer you might get.
for sure. But there's another item on here that I would probably throw that in there as well. But I love that. I love that idea.
Yeah. So I think and you can learn a lot about someone's problem solving by the depth at which they explain how they solve the problems. If they just go in and say, I fixed it, they're usually not the problem solver. But I think that's the thing. There's a recipe to problem solving.
Yeah.
It's like, well, the first thing I did is I took a look and I analyzed the situation. And I said, well, what was the result I'm trying to get to? And then I work backwards. Like they'll go in and they'll give you real specific. And I did this and then I did this. And I knew if I did this and this, that I was going to get option number 3 coming out. So the more in depth they would explain it, whether they're doing hypothetical or the past, the more in depth means the better the chance of them being a problem solver.
But if they're throwing right out the gate,
I just fixed it.
I just
right?
solved the issue.
Yeah, when I interview coaches, I do that. I say, tell me about a time that you fixed something, and I'm analyzing how in depth they go and whether or not they're system based or it's like, oh, I just fixed it.
Fascinating. I like that. Yeah, I love that. Yep. So number 3 on our soft skills list is communication.
And we talk about communication a ton on this podcast.
Well, I think one of the things that works well for us as a company is the communication within our company, and the communication within the coaches, and what's going on in the field and what we're seeing and all those things that we have. So communication, when I go into a store, you can literally tell what kind of communication takes place at that store just by the interaction from the employees to each other. I think when this communication is really open and really good, the interaction between employees is great.
Well, the other thing that happens is when the communication is really good is regardless of the department, the story is the same.
Yeah.
It's, I would say that more common than not is that you get 3 different stories. You get something from sales, service, and parts.
I think one of my favorite things is to go into, and there's a couple stores that I'm thinking of in particular, but I go into them, and if the service director and I are walking through the showroom, salesman or hey, Bill, how you doing? Or, whoever it is, they're asking him, and they're looking for him. But I think communication from a soft skill levels, when I'm interviewing someone too, I'm also looking at how they communicate to me. There's a lot of people these days that are so used to communicating by text message and Snapchat and all those things that are non-interactive to another human. There's often a breakdown in the ability to communicate one-on-one.
Well, I think that there's a need for both, though. You have to be a really good, communicator via text and social media because that's how a lot of customers communicate.
I would agree.
So you have to do that right. And then there's definitely an etiquette to how we communicate with our customers in that way too. But being a master of communication, I'd like to kind of enhance that by saying proactive communication.
Okay.
Being in charge of it as opposed to reactive.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really important. Like parts departments that are flourishing they're constantly reaching out to their customers about status on parts arrivals. They're constantly reaching out to their customers with, pricing options and accessories and stuff like that. Like they're not waiting for someone to call them.
Yeah, they're seeking it out.
That's right.
Yep, that's great. The other one on my list is adaptability. How they adapt to the environment. If things don't go right, what are they going to do?
So like what they're wearing to work, like you don't want someone wearing shorts in the winter, or is that different?
I think it's a little bit different, but
Okay.
But yeah, for sure.
Oh, did I tell you I went golfing a couple of weeks ago?
No.
Yeah, so I go golfing and I have a caddy. And just because I feel like it's nice to have a caddy and they help you out and everything like that. And I'm playing the worst golf of my life. And I'm, let's say about 180 yards out. And I look up, I'm like, hey, do you think I can, get this on the green with my 5-iron? And the caddy says, eventually.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Continue.
It's gonna take a couple swings.
Yeah. Adaptability.
But adaptability, yeah. Again, I think that throws into another scenario of I want to figure out what they kind of pressure I could put them on and how they adapt to that pressure.
Yeah. How would you interview for that?
That's a great question. I probably would go back to their history. I think that's the area that I would go back to the history on and ask them to tell me of a scenario that they struggled with and how they adapted and how they overcame.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of things would you be interested? What kind of things would you hear that would let you know that they were adaptable?
I'm looking for the pressure on it. Like, what did it do to them for their pressure? Because I think sometimes that not being adaptable causes a person to break and they lash out.
Yeah.
I think of a couple different people in my career that weren't adaptable, and when things didn't go right, it just ruined their day.
Yeah.
Maybe they spill coffee on their pants. Well, at that point, it's just going to be a terrible day, and everything falls downhill from there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's good. You want to know the question I would ask?
Yes.
Tell me what you do when you get stuck.
And you're looking for how they were going to respond to it.
Yeah.
And are you asking them in a business standpoint or just in anything?
Leave it open.
Yeah.
Because you have to be adaptable in your personal life as well as your professional life, and the two can interact, right?
Sure.
The truth is that you get into the thing and all you see is a wall and you have to make a change, right? You have to climb it, move around it, whatever it is, but you want to listen for the acknowledgement of when you're stuck. It's like, okay, I'm in a rut, I got to get out of it. And then what's their system for getting out of it?
Do you normally, are you asking and asking for the way that they're thinking there?
Yeah, for sure. As a matter of fact, I would say that the reason I leave stuff so vague is because then I can ask further follow-up questions when it comes to that. But like, you can find out if someone's adaptable or not by just asking them about getting stuck. But just don't let up. Ask many. So I would say that the stuck question needs 5 or 6 follow-up questions
from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm pushing that. All right, good.
Well, and I think that falls right into, so 3 of those could kind of go hand in hand, but critical thinking.
Yeah, I think that problem solving, adaptability, and critical thinking are very, very similar. I understand why you put them down as separate soft skills because they would be rated as different soft skills, but that's the same recipe to me at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. In the system at the end of the day is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I think the critical thinking thing to me is, tell me a time you've had to make a really hard decision and how did you arrive at the decision?
So I thought maybe in that area, maybe I looked at it a little bit different. I was thinking more of tell me a time that you had to overcome some issue in your life. That's what I was looking for on
okay.
thinking. But I think you could, like you said, I think you could mix any of those together. But I kind of leaned on that one. I kind of approached that one maybe that way and asking them, tell me a time that you overcome. What's the greatest thing you've overcome in your life? It's funny when you get that for some of the younger generation because you'll get, well, I had a broke leg and I had to, still get to school and, all those things that they would go and play. But there's definitely a thing for critical thinking.
Yeah. Today it's like, well, my phone died.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Young man, tell me what you would do if your phone dies. Like,
and they'd be like, don't ever talk to me again.
Right. They get up and leave the interview.
Yeah.
The other one on my list is time management. I kind of would ask maybe what a day looks like for them and how that's laid out. Let's just say reading and challenging themselves in growth. Maybe they wake up in the morning. That's the first thing they do. Well, I start my each day by reading the book that I'm currently reading, which is whatever. And so I'm just kind of looking for that, how they laid their day out.
You
might tell me more about you too.
Maybe a little bit, but I don't know if I'd hold it against somebody if they didn't read yet.
If they're not currently reading a book.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't hire somebody. I would say that what you're looking for is patterns, because I think that the the thing that really makes time management is repetition and also the value of self, right? So let's say that I'm a parts manager and I spend all my day working on cores. What does that tell you about my time management?
Then I'm not very good at it
Why?
because I'm spending on one task the entire day.
Yeah, and what should I be doing?
I should be either handing that off to someone, a shipping and receiving clerk, or getting a lot better about doing it, at real time. Like
Yeah,
I'm sending back those cores that day, not hoarding them up.
That's right. From a leadership perspective, time management actually typically comes from a lack of ability to delegate.
Yeah, I agree
So,
with that.
so it's what might seem like a thing is actually is something completely different.
And I would say that there's probably a lot of managers out there that really need to get better at the delegation portion of it. And I know we're kind of
I
sidetracking
think
it,
we all do. No, I think delegation's a soft skill.
but I think delegation is under the time management aspect of it, especially probably from a parts manager standpoint, is we have a tendency just to say, I'll just do it and handle it myself instead of delegating it out and giving a person a chance to do critical thinking and adaptability and problem solving. I've got to think of it too from that side of it as how am I teaching my staff and am I allowing them a chance to grow?
Oh yeah, that's great. You could definitely make a correlation between teaching and delegation.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Oh, that's good.
I'd agree.
All right, I love it.
And then the last portion of it is interpersonal.
What does that mean?
That means how do I communicate and how personal I get with somebody.
So this is person to person
That's
contact.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So that kind of falls under my communication, but this is a little different because you touched on it earlier. Communication can be text message, it can be email, it can be all those things. Interpersonal is how I'm communicating with someone one-on-one.
And when you say that, are you really saying mostly you're focusing on like how do I communicate within the team as opposed to externally with a customer?
I think it can be all those, but it's specifically when I'm sitting someone down, if we're again using the same scenario that we kind of talked about in an interview setting, is I'm looking for them and how they communicate to me. Are they fidgety? Are they comfortable? Are they making eye contact? Are they looking away? All those things that you're kind of making note of. I don't think it takes them out of the realm of hiring. I just need to know what position I'm hiring for and does that fit into the position I'm hiring for.
Great. Okay.
So somebody that's not interpersonal, maybe they would fit better in a shipping and receiving role. Someone who's super good at interpersonal communication, maybe I want them on the counter, make great drivers. We know we discussed that in the past, but I think some drivers can probably turn into some outside salespeople.
Yeah, I think your drivers being really great communicators is a must.
Yes.
That's good. All right, great list.
All right.
So recap.
That's all we got. So just to recap our soft skills, number 1, teamwork, be involved. Number 2, problem solving. 3, communication. 4, adaptability. 5, critical thinking. 6, time management. And 7, interpersonal communication.
Well, I love it. So hope you guys enjoyed all that information, and we'll see you next time on Parts Hold.
Here to fill the order.